Hello and welcome to the July vlog. It is July 1st. I keep wanting to say June. Be like, oh, it's finally June. And be like, no, June has come and gone. Jesus. Spleen gets auto-fed and that was her lunch. I always forget she gets lunch. She gets excited. Reading. I am currently reading. I actually finished everything that I was in the middle of in June. So like I'm kind of starting off with like a clean slate. I haven't started a new ebook. I'm like into an audiobook, whatever. Physically, I just started A Faint Cold Fear by Karin. This is just how the summer is going. Like, it's just gonna be Karin all summer. Because I am reading Grant County series. This is the third book in that series. I am enjoying it. I'm not very far in, like a bit over 100 pages. This one is like slightly longer, but like it's going by real fast. I'm liking it. No one is surprised. I will say, I don't find myself very invested in this. Like, I like it and I really like the characters, but I don't know if it's just because I haven't read enough yet, or that I was like focusing on the short story collection that I was trying to get read by the end of the month, which succeeded. Feel good about that. So I was like prioritizing that over this, but I'm just like not as into this as I have been. Like, I just don't care about the mystery or the case or what's going on. Because like essentially Sarah's sister got stabbed and they found a dead body, and that like happened in the same place, and they don't know if they're connected, and like the dead body might be a suicide, but like it's a thriller, so I'm just assuming not. Generally that's where I go, but it's like, I don't know, like I'm enjoying it a lot. I don't want to be like my thoughts are negative, like this is an easy 4 stars, but it's just like I'm weirdly not caring as much as I have. I'm like, I care about the characters, but just like not the mystery at all. So I'll see if that changes. And the other thing that I'm going to be reading that I haven't started yet, I did my TBR for the book bingo, and weirdly I read all of the books that I put on that TBR. Like, I just sat down and read them all in June, which I was not planning on doing that. It just kind of happened. Except for this one, which is The Devil's Advocates, The Greatest Closing Arguments in Criminal Law. This is covered in hair. My apologies. Spleen. This is the 3rd book in a trilogy that are just like the greatest closing arguments in civil law and the greatest closing arguments in modern law, both of which I read in high school and really enjoyed, and like I was, you know, broke and never got a copy of this, and I finally got a copy of it and didn't read it, so now I'm reading it. I probably would have read this last month, except I was reading the short story collection, and because this is also like not a single narrative, it's told in like pieces, like I think like 10 arguments, and they each have their own section. It reads, you know, like a short story. I mean, it's clearly not, but like same vibe. So I just didn't want to pick this up while I was like reading a short story collection. So I am going to be reading this. I'm very, very excited. Like, I loved the other 2. I found them so interesting and so insightful, and like it just like has the text of the legal arguments, and then like a lot of context for the case, and then like a discussion on like why they chose that argument, and like an analysis of it, and like I don't know if I'm just a massive nerd, but I love them. Like, it was so interesting to me, and like I'm stoked. I really, really am. So this I will probably start reading soon, and the Karin book, it's Saturday today, so I will probably finish that tomorrow. Just being realistic, I'm gonna sit down and then like 2 hours will pass and I'll be done. That's what happens with Karin. I don't really know what else the plan is for this month. Just like do that. I would like to start going to the gym, not a booktube thing, but like I'm about to go to the gym now. I have like my workout leggings on and I'm like going. I don't know how often I'm going to go, but I would like to go more than once this month. So that is my plan. And then beyond that, I have a weird week next week because of 4th of July, because 4th of July is on a Tuesday, so instead of having like a 3-day weekend for the holiday, we have a normal weekend and then go in Monday and then have Tuesday off, which is just like, why? Give us the 4-day weekend at that point? I don't know. I think most people in my office took the 4-day weekend, but like, I'm new and don't have that much PTO, so I have to save it for the things that are very important. So I don't know, it's gonna be a weird work week, but I still have a lot to do and I want to read a lot, and I don't know, we'll see what happens this month. It is Monday, July 3rd, and I am actually still reading A Faint Cold Fear. And to be honest, not that far in. I don't know if I'm struggling with this one so much or if it's just that I'm tired, because I've been so tired today, like non-functioning, and I don't even think I was 200 pages in when I started the day, and I've read a decent amount. It's just like going by a lot slower, and I find myself very distracted reading this, and I don't know, it's still good, like the characters are still good, but I do feel like the mystery in this is just offering nothing to me. I'm finally getting to a point where I might be kind of intrigued, but like there are these two suicides, or like apparent suicides. It's a thriller, so I'm assuming that they're both murder. And then the main character's sister was stabbed, and we're spending a whole lot of time on the apparent suicides and investigating them, and like literally no time on the stabbing of the sister, which seems like the crime that really needs to be investigated here. Like, I get that the other two are murder as well, but like they don't come across as murder, so I don't know. I'm not loving it as much as I wish I did, and it's probably like my least favorite of the series so far, but I don't know. I'm gonna try to get through it like in the next day or two, because if this takes me a week, that's a really bad sign for the month ahead. I have updates, hence the setting up of the camera. I was not gonna hold it for like the 8 minutes that I'm gonna talk here. I finished the Karin Slaughter book, finally. I don't know why it took me a week to read that. Like, it was good. It wasn't my favorite of her books, but it was still like a good, enjoyable thriller that had a lot of positive qualities to it. I still really love her writing style. It took me like a week to read. I don't know, don't love that, but it's kind of setting a not great tone for like the rest of the month. We're like a week into July at this point. It's like the 6th, I think. Anyway, finished that. It's Thursday. I finished that on like Tuesday, and now I have moved on to one of the denser books that I have on my TBR. Greatest Closing Arguments in Criminal Law, The Devil's Advocates. I love this. I am exactly 1 chapter in. Each chapter is a different case, and there are 8 total. So I am 1/8 of the way through this, and it is fantastic. I could do an entire review video just discussing the first chapter of this. So interesting, but also I'm aware that literally no one cares about this except me. But it is really interesting. The first one was about a lynch mob. A black man in 1906 was accused of raping a white woman, so he got, you know, the fair trial that you would expect, being that he was a black man in 1906 and was immediately convicted on no evidence whatsoever. And he actually had like decent lawyers. Like, he had 3 white lawyers at first who seemed like they did a competent, if not amazing, job. It seemed like they were actually trying to get him off, which surprised me. And then he had 2 black lawyers after that who like took him through the appeals process and went up to the Supreme Court. And then they took it to the Supreme Court while he's, you know, on death row about to be executed in like 2 weeks. And the Supreme Court was like, sure, we'll hear that case because this looks suspicious. And the white Tennessee townfolk did not appreciate that and got a lynch mob and killed him. So the Supreme Court was then like, we had a stay of execution, we're the Supreme Court, how are you not listening to us? And then held the lynch mob in contempt of court. And like, this is like a years long thing of like dealing with the lynch mob through this very like technical like Supreme Court way, and it was so interesting. Like, it was absolutely fascinating. Like, had the outcome you would expect of like slap on the wrist, nothing happened to these murderers, but so interesting in terms of like legal context. I loved it. I have 7 more that I am so looking forward to. They write really interesting because this book is like the entire legal case. He offers like a summary of like the crime, because these are all criminal. The other 2 books that are in this series are not necessarily criminal, but it's like a summary of like the situation, like the crime, and then it starts in on the trial, and there's like lots of trial manuscripts and like explanations of like what's going on behind the scenes and like why they're arguing certain things and why some things are working and some things aren't. And then like a lot of like excerpts from the closing arguments, because like obviously they can't include like the full text of all the closing arguments because some people go on for hours and like that's not gonna happen. But like long passages from the closing arguments and like the powerful statements and then like the conclusion and like the after effects of that and like what it means and why they chose it for the book. And it's very, very interesting, and I'm so happy I'm finally reading this. I read the other 2 books in the series in high school and loved them, and like, fantastic. Again, aware that nobody but me cares about this, but I love it. It makes me very happy. And then the other thing I'm reading, because I am way too much of a coward to take this to work, because I do not need my coworkers commenting on the fact that I'm reading like a random law book. I do not want that. So I'm reading a very normal novel at work as well, which is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. Very popular dystopic novel about a flu-like pandemic that wrecks the world and sends everything into chaos and like puts them in this like post-apocalyptic, like so many people died that like all the systems are broken, there is no more like gasoline, there is no electricity, like they're all living in like this wasteland basically. Really enjoying it so far. Like, it gets wonderful reviews for a good reason. It's fantastic, it's interesting, the writing's great, the story's great. It is making me kind of anxious, just, you know, the similarities to COVID, because this is so similar to COVID. It was published in 2014, and it's just like, if COVID was like worse in every capacity, and it's just like scary, like how close you can be to something like this. And like, I've definitely heard other people talk about this in regards to that and like their anxieties and their struggles reading this book, and like was aware, was mentally prepared, did not really expect it to affect me. I don't know if my mindset was like, I think I'm too good for that, I will be unbothered, but like I am kind of bothered, honestly. Not so much when it's in the future, when it's like 20 years, it's split timeline between like the pandemic, like when it first hit, and then 20 years later, as they're living in this new world. So like the 20 years later doesn't bother me so much, but like the actual pandemic itself makes me very, very uncomfortable. I am enjoying it, but it's definitely going to be a slower read for that. And then the law book is obviously kind of a slow read, although like I could just spend an entire day reading that if I had the time. It's so good. But this is very enjoyable as well. And then I went to the library because I had 2 books on hold. So this will be the extent of my TBR for the month. Oh wait, I have one more book. Let's go through. No. And then I went to the library because I have books that I need to read for the 12-book challenge. One of them is not for that. One of them is just for fun. But for the 12-book challenge, I have Miss Benson's Beetle by Rachel Joyce, which was recommended to me by Charlie Book Reads. This is historical fiction about 2 women in 1950 who like travel the world. That's basically all I got, but it's not very long. Looking forward to it. It should be enjoyable. I don't think Charlie would recommend me a bad book. And then the other book that I got is Magic Bites by Ilona Andrews, which does not look like my vibe at all. But Keep Calm with Books and Coffee and Penelope the Paperback Cat talk about Ilona Andrews all the time, like constantly, like literally every single month. Both of them are reading like multiple books and talking about how amazing they are, and like it is so easy to suck me into the hype on something, and like I have been sucked into the hype, even though this is a fantasy romance novel about shapeshifters, which is not my vibe. But I figure worst case scenario, it's a kind of short book that is not my thing. Best case scenario, I find something new and interesting I wouldn't have read otherwise. So nothing bad will happen. I am just like mildly concerned, but it's only 250 pages in like mass market form, which is nothing. And like, I don't know. I know because both of them really love Ilona Andrews, and like they're supposed to be a good author. Like I've heard the writing is really good and the characters are really good. So like even though I'm not like a big fantasy romance person, I'm hoping that I will really enjoy the writing and the characters and all of that. So fingers crossed. So that is what I'm doing. This has been a lengthy update, and I'm going to go back and read my law book and really enjoy that, because like that is going to be 5 stars. Like I'm only 66 pages in, but like that's gonna be 5 stars, and it's gonna be on my favorites list of the year, and I really don't care that no one else cares about this book because it's amazing. Still reading both of these, still loving both of these. I just figured I would come on here quickly to say that I am putting more effort into my Instagram now, especially with the death of Twitter. I've been thinking that I'm going to just, not like tons of effort, I'm not like posting a lot, but I never really like talked about my Instagram much on here because like I wasn't doing anything with it at all, except occasionally posting pictures of my cats. But I am putting like slightly more effort into my Instagram, so if you are interested, it is linked down below. So go check it out if you also have an Instagram and don't follow me. I think I follow most people on here who have Instas that I'm aware of, but I do, so just putting that out there. Today is July 14th. I didn't update for a minute. I don't know exactly how long it's been. I was really tired the last like week and a half, honestly. Like weirdly tired, like sick tired kind of, but I felt fine other than being tired. So I didn't really do anything either on YouTube or in life, so that would be why there was the massive weird gap of me posting videos or responding to comments or doing absolutely anything whatsoever. But it's Friday. I'm feeling a little bit better. Still tired, but like I'm not laying down in bed waiting for it to be time to fall asleep yet. So that's a victory. I read a couple of books. I finished like 3 or 4 books since the last time I updated, because like when I'm tired, all I can do is just like lie down and read. So I read a lot, and honestly it's enough that like I'm not gonna go through them for the vlog, just show up for the wrap-up. I'm reading 3 books right now, all physical. I finished my audiobook today, and I don't have an ebook going right now, so I just have 3 physical books. The first is this, which I keep talking about. I'm only on the 2nd section. When I'm tired, I'm not gonna read a law book. So I haven't been reading it, but like the 2nd section is still really fantastic about like warrants and unlawful searches, and fascinating. The law is so interesting. So still working on that, haven't really made progress. I was for a minute reading A 50-Year Silence by Miranda Richmond Mouillot. Don't know how to pronounce her last name, it's French. But I have been reading this. It's about her, well, it's about her, but it's mostly about her grandparents who were Jewish and were born in the 30s, 20s, something, in Europe. I don't know if they were French, They survived World War II by escaping Nazi-occupied France for refugee camps in Switzerland. And then they moved back to France, and then they got divorced and never spoke again. And this is basically the granddaughter being like, what happened? And kind of like just uncovering her family past. And like, it's not bad. Like, it's not, but it's very like self-indulgent. And I don't mean that necessarily in an entirely negative way, because like all memoirs are to a degree. You're writing about yourself. And I mean, she's writing about her grandparents, but it's also a lot about like herself and her relationship with her grandparents and like why she's researching this, like why it matters to her. And it's like, I can see how she got a lot out of writing this book and like exploring her grandparents' relationship and all of that. Like 100%, I understand that. For a reader, it's offering less. Like, I'm just not caring about like why her grandparents got divorced. I don't know, because she's coming at it from the perspective of a granddaughter. Like, she knows them as grandparents. She knows this woman as her grandmother. And it's just like, she can't, like, look at it from an outsider's perspective, and she doesn't ever try to. And it's just, the way she's writing it doesn't fully work for me. It's just, like, not amazing. But it's also not bad. I just kind of got bored a little bit. And when I'm tired and bored, I'm not going to keep reading. So, like, this might take me a minute. But I put that down because, again, a little bored, very tired. And I picked up a thriller because, like, to be honest, when I'm tired and just, like, my brain is dead, I'm gonna read a thriller. And not Karin Slaughter for once. Because I don't want to, like, read something that I'm gonna love too much because I just don't have the energy right now to, like, fully love and appreciate something. So I am reading The Good Girl by Mary Kubica, because this has been on my TBR for ages. I just picked this up randomly, several years ago at this point, probably. It's just a thriller about a 25-year-old woman who was kidnapped and held for several months, and, yeah, it follows, like, the before, like, when she's kidnapped, and, like, her parents, and, like, the detective on the case, and, like, as they're like realizing that she's like actually missing, and like the investigation, and then it covers the after, like when she's come back and like her dealing with like the repercussions of what happened and like her mental health struggles and like stuff. I'm not very far in, which is why I can't really explain it well. I feel like I also don't hate this book. I'm gonna say some very negative things about it, but I don't think it's bad. This was written like specifically with me in mind for me to hate it, because it's just like every choice that this book makes, not necessarily a bad choice, but one that I do not like. It's written in first person present tense, which I don't love. It has very short chapters with alternating perspectives, so it's just like there are many points of view and you only get like a few pages with each one before it switches again. And it's also in alternating timelines because you're getting the before and the after, and it's just like everything I hate just in one book. So this is not gonna get a high rating from me, but I am like entertained. Like, I want to know what happened. Like, it's very easy for a thriller to grab me. Like, the worst thing I can say about a thriller is that I don't care what happens. And like, I do, like, I'm interested in knowing what's happening. This is probably gonna get either 2 or 3 stars depending on how it goes, but it's like, it's not bad by any means. It's just like everything she's doing in this book is something that I do not like. And it's just like, I don't know if I've ever read a book where all of those things that I do not like have just been combined into one. So, it's an interesting experience. I read the first like 50 pages on my lunch break today, so I'm kind of planning to get through this really fast. But it's entertaining. I will take entertaining but flawed over boring any day for thrillers. I finished The Good Girl. It's the next day. It only took me a day to read it, or I guess 2 days, because I started it yesterday and finished it today. Anyway, I would like to take back everything positive that I said about this book, because it was entirely undeserving, and this sucked. Like, I was trying to give it the benefit of the doubt, and I was like, I don't like anything that it's doing, but that doesn't make it bad. And I'm just like, no, it was kind of bad. Not a fan. It was trying so hard to be Gone Girl. Like, she just rewrote Gone Girl with, like, less interesting characters. Like, equally dislikable as Gone Girl, but less interesting. And a less interesting story. And less developed characters. And fewer motivations or less developed I don't know. It's just, like, she tried so hard to make this Gone Girl, and just, like, she was not capable of writing an interesting book like Gone Girl. It's like, I don't know. I was unimpressed. I didn't like anything about this. I'm sure she's written other better things, because I've heard good things about some of her books, but, like, this one felt so short for me. It just felt unbelievably short of the mark, so unimpressed by this. But it did rejuvenate me for my other books, so I'm hoping for some good reading. Sometimes you just have to read a bad book to just, like, kind of jumpstart your good reading, and I've been reading so many good books lately that I haven't read anything that I was really disliking, so maybe this will get me another 5-star. It is Monday, the 17th of July, and I am reading things. Did I say that I finished The Good Girl? It wasn't good. Let's leave it at that. I may have updated. Continuing to read A 50-Year Silence by Miranda Richmond Mouillot, whose last name I've looked up the pronunciation of now, because she's French and I can't pronounce French for anything. I'm making progress, very slow progress. I've kind of decided that I'm not going to read more than like 40 pages of this a day. Like, I just can't bring myself to do it. It's not bad, it's just kind of boring, and she really does not do a good job of making me care about her grandparents' divorce. Because it's like, I understand that she cares very deeply, and she's very invested in their divorce, which happened like 50 years before she was born, but like, whatever. It's just like, she doesn't do a good job of making me care. So I'm reading this whole book, like, I just really don't care about these people, and like, they don't really seem like they care about this divorce, and like, she's trying to make it seem like it's a very present thing in their lives. I mean, I think they're both dead by now. They were like, you know, in their 90s when she was writing this book. But like, they kind of seem like they were divorced and just like living their own lives, and like not really affected by each other anymore, apart from like just kind of the bitterness that never left from a bad divorce. I don't know. Like, it doesn't seem like it's as meaningful as she's trying to make it seem. So I'm not disliking it. It's like on the border between 2 and 3 stars, and I feel like it kind of just depends if at any point I become interested in what she's saying, because the writing's fine, and like, there are a few things I care about, just like overall, so because I'm only reading that like a little bit, I'm taking this to work every day and reading it on my lunch break, and I should finish it like Wednesday, probably. Hopefully Wednesday, maybe Thursday, but I'm not going to be doing a lot of reading on this. So the book I'm reading at home, I have finally started the series that I need to be reading and have needed to be reading for a minute. The Tomorrow series by John Marsden. Is it John? Yes. I always want to say James. Tomorrow When the War Began is the first book, which is technically a reread for me. This is an Australian young adult series, dystopic series, about these Australian teenagers who go camping in the bush for a week. When they come back, it turns out they've been invaded, and their parents are being held in a concentration camp, and like, etc., etc. things happen. I don't like it, and like, I'm not hate reading this series, but I don't like anything about it except for the overarching storyline. The characters are all really vapid and shallow people. It focuses so much on the romance for a book where like, they're just now figuring out that they've been invaded. Like, it's 2 days after the invasion, and the main character is like, well, I don't want to seem like a slut for flirting with like 2 different guys in the same week. And it's like, you were invaded 2 days ago, everyone you know is being held in a concentration camp. You're being shot at. Like, this was the book that made me understand the criticism of romance in YA dystopian. Because, like, I'd never really seen it before. Like, I read The Hunger Games and I thought the romance in that was really well done and, like, really well developed within the world. And I read this and I was like, I understand what people are saying now. Like, not about all books, but, like, I just never read a book where, like, it bothered me so much, and it does here. And I hate the writing, and the dialogue is awful. But I'm so curious about the overarching story of just, like, these people, these teenagers whose Australia has been invaded. Like, what happens? Like, I know I'm not gonna like it. I'm hoping some of the later books get better, but like I'm just so curious about the overarching plot and I want to know what happens. So I'm committing to this entire 7-book series. I don't know. It's probably a stupid thing for me to do, but like I've wanted to for a long time. And like my library didn't have the books, so I had to go and buy all 7 of these books that I know I'm not going to enjoy. And I feel like an idiot, but like I wanted to read them. So now I'm finally reading them, like, years later. This is just as bad as I remember it. I'm hoping they kind of get better as they go along, but, like, we'll see. I'm almost done. They're all really short. They range from, like, 200 to 300 pages, so, like, they'll be super quick reads, and I don't know. I want to know what happens. That's it. Progress is being made. I think the last time I updated, I was on Tomorrow When the War Began, which is the first book in the Tomorrow series, and now I am on book 3, so these are really quick reads. They really just take me like 2 days to read, maybe 3 if I'm busy, but yeah, working on these. So far, the first one has been by far the worst, which is a relief because that's pretty awful, to be honest. Just like everything about it. And the second one was much more entertaining, and this is as well. But I am starting to notice that like they're kind of repetitive. Like each book is just them like deciding to blow something up and then like their quest blowing it up. And like it's every book, and that's like the main thing that happens in every book. It's like a car, a bridge, a house, a boat, and it's just like, are we gonna do anything else? Like there's so much going on and they just keep blowing stuff up, which like I get, but it's I don't know. I'm just worried that every book is just gonna be like blowing something up, because like in the second book it worked really well because it was the second time they've done it, or the third, I guess, because they blew up 2 things in the first book. But now I'm like on the 4th thing that they're blowing up, and I'm kind of like, let's have a different plan. Let's do something else, anything else. So I think I'm gonna take a break after this one. Like I've got like a little bit less than 200 pages left, so hopefully finish that today, and then maybe take a break and read something else, because I don't think I can go straight into the 4th one. I just read these 3 in a row, and I'm still finishing up A 50-Year Silence, which I'd been doing really slowly at, and then I only have 20 pages left, like maybe like 18 or 19, so I wasn't taking it to work, and then I just wasn't reading it at home, so I do need to, after I finish A Killing Frost, I'm gonna finish this up real quick. It finally got interesting. Here's the thing. This is about her grandparents' divorce, like their marriage, their relationship, their divorce. And like they haven't talked in 50 years, and they don't tell the author of this book anything because they don't want to talk about like their divorce and their relationship with this person they no longer like. And it's just like understandable. But then she doesn't have much information to go on. And towards the end, she just started talking about the fact that her grandfather, who is Jewish, a Holocaust survivor, was a translator at the Nuremberg trials. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, why are we talking? Why do we have a whole book about his relationship and his marriage and his divorce when we could be talking about the fact that he was a translator at the Nuremberg trials? Like, please, let's have a book about that. Like, let's focus on that. It's so interesting. So, like, I'm kind of bummed that I'm at the end and it's finally gotten interesting. But I will be finishing this up real quick. Again, it's like 20 pages. I don't know. It was just like, this didn't need to exist. Like, I get that this was probably wonderful for her to write and her to research, but I just don't care. Like, she didn't make me care at all, which is unfortunate, but gonna finish that up, both those, and then move on to something else. I'm thinking When I Hate You, because I've wanted to read that for forever. And it's just been sitting there, and I keep thinking about it, so I'm gonna make myself read that. And I also got a book from the library. Let me grab that, actually. Magic Burns by Ilona Andrews. This is the second book in the Kate Daniels series. I read the first book during this vlog, but when I was tired and didn't update for 2 weeks. So I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, which might have been generous. Maybe. I don't know. I had a good time. And it like gave me a lot of like nostalgic vibes for Amelia Atwater Rhodes, who's like, I don't know how similar they actually are, but like it's kind of a similar vein of urban fantasy in the way that it's done and the way that like humans interact with like vampires and shapeshifters and stuff. I don't know. It reminded me of that, but also I don't read it at all, so it's probably just the fact that it is urban fantasy. But it reminded me a lot of that, which was very nostalgic and like kind of happy making, and I didn't love it, but it was fun, and it took me a long time to get into, so like I have the second book, and if I like this, I will read the third book, which I have to go to the annoying city library to get the third book because neither of the counties that I belong to have it, which is annoying, but I'm gonna be reading this month as well, and hopefully it's better than the first book. If it's not better, I don't think I will continue the series, but if it is, I might try the third one. We'll see. It's the 25th of July, and over the weekend, it's Tuesday, over the weekend I was looking at like the books I want to read this month and like what I'm prioritizing, because I tend to do that, like maybe not in like a literal like create a stack sense, but just kind of decide like what do I want to prioritize in my last like 2 books of the month. As I created a stack, I was like, oh, there are 6 books I would like to finish this month. That's not really an attainable realistic goal. Like technically I could do that, but like it's not gonna happen. So I do have a stack. I did actually finish one. I read it in 2 days, Miss Benson's Beetle, which was lovely. It was a super quick read. Like really well written, really easily done, and just like nice to read. So I do have a stack of the other, well, these are 4. If I can lift it one-handed. The 4 books I would like to continue reading, and then the one that I am reading. So I've pretty much accepted defeat on The Bridge. And maybe The Violin Conspiracy, but that's more iffy. But the other 2 definitely want to read, would like to try to get through The Violin Conspiracy because it looks really good, but we'll see. And then the book I'm currently reading, well, technically I haven't started yet, Magic Burns by Ilona Andrews, which is the second book in the Kate Daniels series, which I mentioned before. It's really quick, it's really short, it's a library book, so like once I finish it, I can return it to the library because I don't like having just like outstanding books, and I also need to put Exhalation on hold so that I can read that next month. I don't know. I love doing the 12-book project. This is not for that. But it is just like upping my library reading by a lot and kind of limiting what other library reading I can do like this. Like I feel bad for reading this when I'm already reading other books from the library, and I don't know, but I do love doing it so much, so I might do it next year anyway and just take the hit to my shelves. But I have a lot that I want to read this month. I have, I think, a week left. I think I have 7 days to get through these 5 books, which like is not happening. Like in no capacity is that gonna happen, but like we'll see, you know, as much as I can get through. Realistic, no, but like it's fine. So the problem with overhyping a book for yourself so much, I finally read When I Hate You, and it was good. It was really good, but it was not the best book that I've ever read, and I really wanted it to be the best book that I'd ever read, which is just an absolutely unrealistic expectation to put on a book. Like, unrealistic. Like, I've read so many books that, like, the likelihood of just randomly finding the next greatest one I've ever read, slim. It was so good. It's just like, when I think about it and when I talk about it, I'm just so focused on that disappointment of, like, this was a really good 4-star book. It was, you know, powerful. Like, her writing was lovely. It was so brutal and, like, bare, and just, like, really just, like, she put you in the moment of this relationship, of this woman who is breaking down, and, like, she does such a good job with all of that. And I'm like, yeah, but I was a little bit bored sometimes, and sometimes the writing was kind of repetitive and not in, like, a good way, and sometimes I just, like, was waiting for the best bits again, and I just was not wholly in love with it. And, like, I don't know. It was really good. Like, I don't want to, like, sit here and be like, this was a bad book, because it wasn't, but it's just, like, I feel so disappointed and, like, kind of overwhelmed by my disappointment, so I did that to myself. It's fine. It's the 31st, nighttime, clearly. I'm staying up because I have to wait for my laundry to dry because I forgot to do that until late. Yay. This was my biggest reading month of the year so far, which I think is in part because I pressured myself to read more, because I'm trying to get books read from my shelves to get my own TBR down, because it is today at 581 books, and it's just hard to look at that and think, like, oh, that's an improvement, because I'm down like 30 from the beginning of the year, and it's just like, it goes down so slowly. Like, even in my best books, like, I almost never read like 10 books off of my physical TBR, just because that's a lot of reading. And even if I were to do that, like, that's 100 books in a year. Like, it just feels disheartening sometimes, and I'm feeling overwhelmed looking at my shelf again, and I don't know, I'm trying not to think about it. So I have a TBR for next month, a small one. I don't really know what the plan is, but I want to put a little more focus into BookTube instead of, like, just completely disregarding BookTube to read constantly, which is what I did for most of July, which was nice. I read, let me see if I can show it. That brown bookshelf behind me, the top stack, is everything I read this month, which is kind of a lot. Yeah, I don't know. That has concluded this month. I'm sorry, I don't have anything interesting to say. I just needed to film, like, a final conclusion. July was a weird month. I feel like I say that every month. July was weird. I was just, like, tired. But thank you for watching. Thank you for showing up to my channel even when I flake out for, like, weeks at a time. I appreciate it. Let me know down below any thoughts you had, if you've read any of these books, what you've read in July, how you're doing. Just chat down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all again soon.